It's been 7 months since a deadly virus wiped out the entire population of England, turning everyone into brutal rage zombies that only want one thing: to infect or massacre anyone who crosses their path. Now the survivors are trying to rebuild, but they have no idea that the virus is about to return. And this time, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. That's why we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the rage zombies in 28 weeks later. This couple is getting ready for dinner, but it's about to be their last meal. Hiding in a farmhouse on the outskirts of London, Father Don and his wife Alice are holed up with a group of survivors, trying their best not to draw any attention. A few days ago, an outbreak swept through the country, transforming anyone who became infected into an army of relentless zombies. Their 2 kids, Tammy and Andy, were on a school trip when it happened, and Dawn reassures her that they're probably safe. But tonight, everything is going to change. You see, while they're having dinner with the others, one of the girls starts worrying about her husband, who left a few days ago to look for help. Jacob here roughly explains that he's never coming back, but just then they hear someone pounding on the front door, begging the survivors to let them in. It's a young boy, and even though Don hesitates at first, the others finally convince him to let the kid inside. But that was their biggest mistake. They quickly lock the place back up, and he says that he's been running 4 miles with the zombies chasing after him. While they're distracted, the girl decides to take a peek through the window, when all of a sudden, one of the monsters smashes straight through the barricade, dragging her arm through the window and sinking its teeth into her flesh. The others pull her back, but within seconds, she transforms into one of the zombies, forcing Dawn to take her out with a crowbar. At the same time, dozens more of the monsters start breaking in, and he tells the others to run for it while he tries to hold them off. Okay, and this right here is exactly why these idiots should have never opened the door. Everyone knows that zombies are drawn to noise, and the more commotion that you create, the more of them that you're going to attract. All of that screaming and yelling is guaranteed to draw a horde, so if you're in a shelter, it's always better to keep the door shut and let nature take its course, than to risk your life to save whoever's outside. And if you're gonna let them in, at least make sure that they aren't infected first. At that point, they were lucky that the zombies weren't already breaking down the door, and that's when you need to lie low and be as invisible as possible. But no, this delusional moron over here had to go peeking through the windows to look for her lost husband. What they needed to do was stay quiet and avoid being seen until they were absolutely positive that the kid wasn't followed. Now they've got a huge problem because the zombies just got inside, and in case you haven't noticed by now, these are a lot worse than your average walker. These zombies have been infected with the rage virus, which instantly takes control of their bodies and turns them into mindless killing machines that only want to spread the virus to any uninfected hosts. Unlike Walking Dead type zombies that shamble around at the speed of a senior citizen, the virus supercharges their adrenaline, making them extremely fast, agile, and aggressive, without the drawback of ever getting tired like a normal person. They attack with no regard for their own safety and don't seem to feel or react to any pain, so you can't just injure them with normal attacks, and the only way to stop them is by total incapacitation. The worst part is that if they bite you, you'll turn almost instantly, meaning that their numbers can multiply out of control in just a matter of seconds. Now the infected are already swarming in, and Alice ran upstairs while some of the others ran for the barn. Don can't hold the ground level forever, so his only choice is to fall back to the 2nd floor and try to hold them back at the stairs. His wife and the boy can hide in one of the bedrooms while Don buys them some time and barricades the door and arms themselves with a weapon in case they need to fight. We know that the zombies are attracted to noise, so if these 3 stay quiet enough, then the rest of the horde might get distracted by the group that ran to the barn. Then they can either wait for the zombies to kill the others and move on, or try quietly escaping while using the other group as meat shields. But as we're about to see, Don here has another plan in mind. Following the boy, his wife rushes upstairs and takes cover in a bedroom. A few of them make it to the barn, but the old man is quickly overrun and torn to shreds as he holds the door. His wife gets dragged away screaming as she tries climbing to the loft, leaving only Jacob alive, who manages to escape by climbing through a window. At the house, Don races upstairs with the zombies right behind him. Locking the door, he tells his wife to forget the boy and get out of there, but she refuses to leave him behind. That's when the zombies finally break in, and Alice screams for help, but instead he only slams the door and climbs out through the bathroom window, leaving her for dead. Running for his life, he sprints across the field with the zombies chasing after him, and looking back, sees through the window as his wife is brutally dragged away. Somehow he makes it to the river without being caught, where he finds Jacob desperately trying to get the boat started. Jumping in, he starts the motor and gets ready to haul ass, but Jacob slips before he can get on board and ends up being torn apart in the water. It's a close call for Don, but eventually he's able to get free and he escapes as the only survivor of the attack, making 5 down with 5 more to go. It has now been almost 7 months since the start of the outbreak, and all of the infected have gradually died off from starvation. Since then, a military force led by American troops has been slowly clearing the city, and now they've finally started moving civilians back in. So far, they've only brought in adults, but today the first children are arriving. It's Don's kids, Tammy and Andy, and they're excited just to finally be home. But there's at least one medical officer who isn't happy with the idea. After getting checked in, the first thing that the kids notice are the groups of soldiers clearing biohazard bags from the streets and burning the infected bodies into mass graves. It's not exactly the most reassuring sight, and it's obvious that the cleanup still has a long way to go. They're being taken to a safe zone on the Isle of Dogs, where they'll have everything they need to live a normal life. But the officer warns them that leaving this area is still incredibly dangerous. Arriving at the station, the kids run out excited to see their dad for the first time in months, and he takes them back to their new apartment here in the safe zone. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer Scarlett here explains her doubts to her supervisors, stressing that the area is still too dangerous for children. To them, there's no possible way that the virus could come back, but soon they're about to find out just how wrong they really are. Upstairs, the kids tell him about life at a refugee camp, and he lets them know that they're moving into a new house very soon. Confused, they ask why they're not going back to their old place, but he explains that it's outside of the security zone, plus it brings back way too many bad memories. That's when their mom finally comes up, and now they want to know his side of the story. Sitting them down, he begins to explain how they were staying at the farmhouse when the zombies attacked. He starts off telling the truth, but when it gets to the part where he used his wife as a meat shield, he lies and says that he tried everything he could to save her. Not knowing any better, the kids buy it without questioning the truth, saying that they're just happy at least one of them made it out alive. But it won't be long before they find out what he's really hiding. Later that night, the family goes to bed with no idea that Hawkeye from the Avengers is watching their every move. Andy wakes up from a terrible nightmare about his mother, worried that he'll forget her face since they weren't able to save even one photo from their old house. So the next morning, his sister comes up with an idea. While their father's at work, the two of them carefully sneak across the bridge right past the soldiers, ending up outside of the quarantine zone. They may have gotten past the guards, but Sergeant Doyle here quickly spots them from the rooftop and calls it in. Their plan was to sneak out and get back without anyone noticing, but nothing could prepare them for the chaos that they're about to unleash. Okay, even if they weren't the only kids in the country, these two would still have to be the dumbest. They've only been here less than 24 hours, and they're already completely ignoring the very clear instructions that they were given. You had one rule: don't go outside the fence where the heavily armed military can't protect you. But they just wandered out into the city where there could easily be zombies. Bandits, rats, dogs, or who knows what else. The worst part is that they didn't even bring anything to protect themselves, and they have no way to call for help either, which means that if they run into trouble, they're going to be absolutely smoked before they even know what's going on. Even if they can find help, they'll still need to be careful because no one is expecting two healthy kids to be outside of the safe zone. If they accidentally run into a patrol that mistakes them for zombies, they'll end up getting friendly fired by the same troops that are trying to protect them. They're doing all this just to find a picture of their mom for Andy, but if she really loved them, then I'm pretty sure that the last thing that she'd want them to do is go wandering around in this zombie-infested hellscape all by themselves. Their father is a section officer with a high-status job here in the safe zone, so he knows what projects are going on and what parts of the city are clear. When he finds out that a patrol is going through the area, I'm sure it wouldn't be too much trouble for them to grab a few sentimental items while they're clearing the house. And that way, the kids wouldn't need to risk going for it on their own. They need to stay here in the camp where it's safe and just be grateful that they even survived. But if they're determined to risk their lives like that, then they should at least try being smart about it. The streets are going to be full of trash and decaying bodies that are a breeding ground for more diseases than just the zombie virus. So I would suggest wearing a mask or covering their mouths and noses with a cloth and stop them from breathing in any airborne pathogens. I'd also keep an eye out for any weapons, like a crowbar that they could use to protect themselves or gain access to inaccessible places. It's crucial for them to stick together at all costs, because splitting up can easily lead to a dangerous situation that could get one or both of them killed. They should also stay as quiet as possible to avoid attracting any attention, not just from zombies, but from packs of wild dogs or whoever else might still be out there. As for their mission, I'd go straight to their parents' house, get what they need, and then go straight back home. And if they see anything scary, then just turn around and get the hell out of there before they end up getting stomped out by a horde of their old neighbors. They might not be expecting any trouble, but what they're about to find is even crazier than they could possibly imagine. As they're running through the empty streets, the kids find an abandoned pizza place with a bunch of delivery scooters lying out front. They sure would be a big help if they could find the keys, so Tammy tells her brother to wait outside while she goes in to look. In the restaurant, the girl is disgusted by the rancid smell of the moldy food and comes to a stop when she finds a decomposing body lying on the kitchen floor. Reaching down, she gets jump scared by a bunch of cockroaches that come out from his jacket, but she gets the keys and they speed away deeper into the city. Now, this area is an absolute ghost town, and by now, there isn't a single zombie or survivor anywhere in sight. All they see are abandoned cars and people's stuff lying all over the roads, until finally they arrive outside of their old house. Grabbing a spare key from under one of the pavers, Tammy leads the way as the two of them head inside. At the same time, their father returns to the apartment, only to realize that the kids are already missing. In the kitchen, the girl finds a picture of their mother hanging on the fridge, and gives it to Andy while she goes to check the rest of the house. After a while, the kid starts wondering where she went and goes up to the bedrooms looking for her, but that's when he makes a shocking discovery. The room is filled with empty food containers, and it looks like someone's been living there. Just then, he notices something moving behind the bed, and a shadowy figure rushes towards him from the darkness. But to his surprise, it's just their mother, Alice, somehow still alive after everything that's happened. Overwhelmed, the woman refuses to let him go, but he finally manages to get free just as a team of soldiers arrives outside. After securing the kids, they head inside to grab their mother and quickly bring all three of them straight back to the base. After so many months of living on the outside, a hazmat team has to scrub Alice down before they can take her inside, and it's obvious that she's still completely traumatized by what happened at the farm. Medical Officer Scarlett takes a sample of the woman's blood, asking how she managed to survive for so long. But now she's refusing to answer any questions. Looking at her arm, they can see a clear bite mark from where she got infected, and all she keeps saying is that she wants to see the kids. Okay, I think we all know where this is about to go. These idiots just brought the only living infected person in the entire country into a closed camp camp with 15,000 unarmed civilians just wandering around waiting to get turned into lunch meat. And you don't have to be a military genius to see the problem here. Alice may be acting chill for now, but if the rage takes over and she goes feral, then they could have dozens or even hundreds of zombies swarming the streets within 5 minutes. And within a few hours, the entire camp could fall, all from the domino effect of bringing just one infected person inside. Now, since the infection is almost already completely gone, the safest bet of all would have been to just take her out right when they found her. But besides being inhumane or whatever, that approach might also waste a valuable resource, as you've probably figured out by now. They're about to learn that Alice here has some kind of natural immunity. Even though she can still infect others, the virus hasn't taken full control of her body, and we need to know why. The way to find out is by collecting samples of her blood plasma and looking for the presence of specific antibodies that neutralize the virus. She could be their key to developing a cure, or at least some medication to help others resist the infection, preventing the spread of any future outbreaks. Not only would this help people stay healthy, but it could even be used as a biological weapon against the infected in case they ever come back. That's exactly what Scarlet here has in mind, but bringing her to the lab on base was a huge mistake. Instead, I would have set up a remote lab outside of the perimeter where they could safely conduct their tests on her without worrying about accidentally causing another outbreak here at the camp. Now, with that being said, Alice is the only immune person who they've found so far, but that doesn't mean that she's the only one, period. Obviously, they have her kids who might also be immune through some kind of inherited genetic resistance. But think about this. The virus spreads through even a tiny drop of bodily fluids, and it only takes 10 seconds before it completely takes over. Back at the cabin, Jacob might have dodged it when the girl vomited up blood, but there's no way you can tell me that he wasn't exposed to any blood or saliva during this fight. And then, several minutes later, we see him alive and well trying to get in the boat. Now, that didn't exactly work out for him thanks to Dawn here, but to me, it's a sign that maybe there are other immune people out there and they just don't know it yet. To find out, they can easily test everyone at camp by taking a blood sample and exposing it to the virus in a controlled environment to see if their cells resist the infection. That way, they'll know if more people have the ability than just Alice herself. As for Dawn, he's relieved to hear that the kids were found safe, but he damn near shits his pants when he finds out that his wife is alive as well. This was not something that he saw coming, and needless to say, the kids are pissed, but he tries to pretend like he never technically said that she died. This time, they aren't buying it so easily, but he does his best to spin it around, trying to gaslight them like it's a good thing, even though he knows that he's about to be exposed. While looking over some of the samples, Scarlet confirms that the woman is definitely infected, meaning that she must have some kind of natural immunity. But since the virus is still alive in her blood, she can still infect anyone who comes into contact. She wants to use the woman's blood to develop a vaccine, but for her bosses, it's just too much of a risk, and they send the order to take her out before the virus can spread again. The only problem is, they're never going to get the chance. Panicking, Dawn sneaks back into the lab without being noticed, hoping to stop his wife before she tells the kids what really happened. He immediately tries to apologize for using his wife as a meat shield, and Alice here must be a real ride or die because it seems like she actually forgives him. But when he leans in for an uncomfortably sloppy kiss, that's when this asshole finally gets what he deserves. All of a sudden, Dawn violently pulls back and slams himself against the wall, growling and frothing at the mouth as the rage virus takes over his body. Terrified, there's nothing that Alice can do as he transforms into one of the zombies right in front of her and starts brutally beating her to death in the most violent way imaginable, sinking his teeth into her throat and biting a chunk out of her neck before burying his thumbs into her eyes. Now that Dawn's a zombie and Alice is officially dead, that makes 6 down with 4 more to go. And storming out to the hallway, he jumps the guards and starts taking them down before anyone knows what's going on, only to disappear into the shadows before they can sound the alarm. A moment later, after discovering the bodies, Command gives the order to lock down the entire camp, but by then, it's already too late. Okay, and there you have it, folks. Holy zombamole, that went bad fast. Usually there's only one person in the group who's the source of all their problems, but this time it looks like everyone played a part in this disaster. And now they're all going to face the consequences. Congratulations on turning this whole thing into a show of epic proportions, because all of you idiots just up. We'll start with you two, Tammy and Andy, because honestly, you're the least to blame here. But you can't deny that none of this would have happened if you hadn't wandered off base. The military had so many rules in place for this exact reason, and by sneaking out on literally the first day, you didn't just put your own lives at risk, but also the lives of everyone else in the camp. And honestly, the world. I get that you just wanted a picture of your mom, but that's not something to risk your life over. Now, the kids made an honest mistake, but when it comes to you, Scarlett, you were just straight up being a dumbass. As soon as those kids got off the plane, you were on the phone with the general about how it was still too dangerous. And you know what? I agree. So tell me why you instantly forgot about any sense of safety and brought the last infected person in the country straight to the heart of the only safe zone around. Out of everyone there, you should know best how dangerous even one infected person can be. I mean, seriously, you put up this whole defensive grid of tanks, helicopters, and machine guns to keep them out, and then let her in just because she wasn't crazy yet? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard, or at least it would be. But then Don here comes along to prove that he's really the biggest moron on the face of the earth. You know the virus spreads by saliva, right? So, how exactly did you think this was going to work out? It looks like your luck just ran out. Sorry everybody, but you all done f***ed up. Just then, the kids notice the power starting to fade in the holding area. A soldier comes and tells them that everything is under control, but as soon as he walks out to the hallway, another zombified guard comes and attacks him too. Watching through the glass, they're terrified when the man crashes back through the door and starts trying to get inside. But luckily, Scarlett comes along and blows his head off just in time. The officer quickly grabs their hands and starts leading them through the hallways, trying to get them to a safe area before things get any worse. When they're stopped by the guards, she tries to pull rank so that they won't get taken to a containment zone with the others. But Andy accidentally gets separated from them in the chaos and dragged down into the shelter by the panicking crowd. I mean, the rush carries him down to the bottom of a long staircase where the soldiers hustle them into a parking garage and then chain the doors shut from the outside. Realizing that they're trapped, everyone immediately starts panicking and trying to get out. Andy fights through the crowd until he's able to reach a quieter area. Seconds later, the military cuts the power except for the emergency lights, leaving them all stranded in total darkness. Meanwhile, on the surface, Doyle watches from his rooftop as the troops scramble into place, trying to get things under control before the virus spreads to anyone else. That's when Andy hears something rattling one of the unguarded doors, and moving in closer, he's horrified to see his zombified father snarling back on the other side of the glass. The sight of the boy puts him into even more of a rage until all of a sudden he finally gets through, and that's when all hell suddenly breaks loose. Completely terrified, Andy rushes back into the crowd as his father falls on the first person he sees, immediately transforming them into a zombie next. Before anyone even knows what's happening, he just starts tearing through any body unlucky enough to get in his way. And the more people that he attacks, the more of them transform into bloodthirsty zombies. It's an all-out massacre, but thanks to his small size, Andy is able to escape into a vent without being injured. Trapped like rats, there's nothing that any of the adults can do besides violently scramble for their own survival, and the crowd eventually gets so desperate that they break down the door back back into the base, allowing the zombies to overrun the guards. Upstairs, the chaos spills out into the streets, as the soldiers are ordered to shoot any infected they see. But that's much easier said than done with just how crazy things are. The snipers try their best to only hit the zombies in the crowd, but it's too dangerous for them to take accurate shots. Realizing that there's only one way to stop this, Command gives the order to shoot anything that moves. Horrified, Scarlet tries warning the other soldiers to watch out for Andy, but nobody acknowledges her call. Hearing the order to fire on all targets, Doyle spots the boy through his scope, but he refuses to take the shot. Instead, he saves him just as one of the infected is about to pounce, and watches as the kid escapes into a nearby warehouse. On the opposite roof, he sees one of his partners being attacked, forcing him to mercy kill the guy before he transforms too. Finally, the chaos starts to die down, at least for now, but after everything that he's just seen, Doyle decides to abandon his post and help the survivors any way that he can. Okay, these people are lucky to be alive, but they aren't safe yet. The good news is that Andy is about to reunite with the others, and they're going to team up with Sergeant Doyle here for help. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Now, it's not just the zombies that they have to worry about, but the military as well. And since they control all transportation on and off the island, there's pretty much nowhere else for them to go, which means that they'll need to use every small advantage they have in order to survive. With Sergeant Doyle taking charge, at least they have an effective leader with a clear plan for what to do. His rifle gives them a solid option for self-defense from both the zombies and the other soldiers, and they can use his radio to keep track of troop movements and watch out for any potential threats. As for Scarlet, she's bringing medical knowledge to the group, which is obviously critical in any survival scenario. So as long as they stick close to these two, the kids, they should be alright. Doyle isn't exactly clear about where he wants to take them, but based on everything that we know about the zombies so far, I have at least one idea that I think could work. At the barn, we saw that the infected are still a threat in shallow water, but once it gets deep, they aren't coordinated enough to swim. Their camp is on the Isle of Dogs, which is located along the River Thames. From there, it looks like the fastest way to the coast is to head straight east. Instead of going through the city, I'd stay along the river because they can always jump in and use it for cover if they're attacked by either side. Along the way, they should keep an eye out for an abandoned boat, and then all they have to do is sail to mainland Europe and wait for this to all blow over. In the warehouse, one of the adults starts boarding up the doors as they prepare for the next attack. Andy walks around the place and notices that it's full of survivors all just hiding out, and that's when he finds Scarlet and his sister taking cover behind some crates. The kids run to each other and hug it out, grateful just to see each other still alive. But Tammy is heartbroken to learn that their dad became one of the zombies. Outside, they can still hear the soldiers opening fire on anything that moves, and it looks like they still have a long way to go before they're safe. A few of them start wondering what they should do next, but just then they hear a mysterious voice from the back of the room. As he steps out from the shadows, they realize that it's Sergeant Doyle, but he promises that he isn't there to hurt them. Instead, he warns them that they'll all be dead if they wait until daylight, and says to just follow him if they want to live. With Doyle leading the way, everyone follows in a single file line as they sneak out through the back alley. That's when his friend, Flynn the helicopter pilot, calls him over a closed frequency, and he has some bad news. The military just decided to firebomb the camp, and they only have less than 5 minutes before they're all burned alive. Right before he leaves, they make a plan to meet up at a nearby park if they survive, but they'll have to make it there in one piece first. The group rushes around a corner as they start running towards the park, but all of a sudden, a sniper starts firing at them from a rooftop, killing 2 of them almost instantly. Scarlet takes a shot to the leg as they scramble for cover, but they make it to an alley where he has them pinned down. Taking out a small mirror, Doyle tries to use it to get a good look at the guy, but he quickly shoots it right out of his hand. From his misses, he can tell that the guy is panicking and not aiming accurately, and this gives him a risky idea. Turning to the only other man in the group, he tells him that he needs to run for a doorway across the street, using him as bait so that Doyle can take the sniper down. Terrified, the man hesitates at first, but while he's distracted, Andy decides to do it himself and runs out into the street to draw out the sniper's fire. Luckily, the boy manages to dodge all of the shots, and Doyle takes the sniper out with one precise hit, clearing the way for them to keep going. For a second, he thinks that he sees his father watching them from a distance, but he quickly disappears as the others come to get him. The survivors scramble over a fence as a squadron of jets flies overhead, finally making it outside the wire as they rush towards the park. Taking cover in a tunnel under the river, they make it to shelter just as the military drops the firebombs, torching anyone left on the streets in a horrifying explosion of flames. Back at the command center, everyone goes quiet as they process what they've just done. But when the general looks at the cameras, he sees that the base is still swarming with infected. It looks like their plan didn't work, and now the zombie hordes are quickly spilling out into other parts of the city. Okay, that was a damn close call. As if zombies and snipers weren't bad enough, all 5 of them would have literally been cooked if they'd been caught out on the street. The military may not have stopped all the zombies, but when you take everything into account, they are actually in a much better position now than they were just a few hours ago. First off, they were finally able to make it outside of the camp. These areas have been zombie-free for almost a year now, and the soldiers won't be looking for any healthy people out there either. This means that almost all of the threats are literally behind them, and they should be alright as long as they keep moving. Now, with that being said, they still need to be careful because they only have one meat shield left, and he's not a very good one either. The good news is that Doyle was able to get in touch with his buddy in the helicopter, and now they have a meeting point where he can get them out of the city. He mentioned that he's meeting them at Regent's Park, which is roughly a 7-mile walk from where they are now. Even with the place being mostly safe, that's still a long way to travel in the zombie apocalypse, especially straight through the heart of one of the largest cities in the world. That's why we're going to take an old plan and just flip it in a different direction. Their path takes them mostly along the River Thames until it cuts back in near King's College. So if it were me, I'd stay along the riverbank at all times and use it for cover if any zombies or soldiers show up. As long as they keep a low profile, they should be safe, but they're in for a few more surprises before this is all over. So Doyle and the group of survivors limp through the city, wandering through the empty streets until they finally make it to the park. At the same time, the infected swarm into the subway tunnels by the hundreds, where they can take cover from the soldiers during the day. The sun is just coming up as they wait for the helicopter by an abandoned carousel, and the kids are upset knowing that both of their parents are officially gone for good. Talking to Doyle, Scarlett explains that the kid's mother was immune, which means that there is a chance that they might be as well, and that's why it's so important that they both survive. That's when he gets a call that the chopper is on its way, but there's a problem. He spotted a horde of infected heading their way too, and they will be there in less than a minute. Alerting the others, they try running for cover before the swarm gets there, but it's already too late, and their only choice is to hide in the tall grass. Flynn comes in to land the chopper, but while he's arguing with Doyle about taking the others, this idiot here runs up and starts trying to climb on board. Panicking, Flynn starts swinging the chopper around trying to shake him off. But now all of the commotion draws the zombies straight towards them. Thinking quickly, he leans the blades forward until they're almost touching the ground, flying right through the crowd and wiping out all of the zombies like a giant lawnmower. Doyle and the others use this opportunity to run for their lives, while this dumbass eventually falls off the chopper and gets eaten alive by the horde. With a crowd of zombies still chasing after them, their only choice is to meet up again somewhere else, and they agree to meet each other at Wembley Stadium as long as they can make it there alive. They have a quick moment to breathe where Doyle checks on the kids, but within seconds, another horde of zombies is already gaining on them. Getting to their feet, they have to keep running while he stops at every corner to take a few of them out, but he'll be out of of ammo before he can kill them all. And now there's something even worse on its way. Now that firebombing the city failed, the military decided to flood the streets with a cloud of toxic gas, hoping to finally kill off the virus once and for all. For Doyle and the others, this forces them to keep doubling back at every turn and have to take shelter in an abandoned car. After they get inside, they rush to lock the doors and close the vents as a crowd of infected quickly surrounds them, slamming on the windows as they try to get inside. Spooked as the others can only sit there hoping that the glass doesn't break. But just when it looks like they're completely screwed, the toxic cloud finally covers the area, killing the zombies just in time. They can't stay here for long though, but now there's another problem when their car won't start. Scarlett keeps trying, but as they look in the mirror, that's when they see a team of soldiers with flamethrowers headed their way. Realizing that they're out of time, Doyle decides that their only choice is to try a push start. Jumping out, he runs around to the back and starts pushing the car as hard as he can, until finally, Scarlett gets the engine to turn over, and the kids can only watch as their buddy Doyle is burned alive in a burst of flames, saving their lives for now, but making 7 down with 3 more to go. Okay, I'm sorry, but what the hell was that? This guy was a straight up tactical genius until a few seconds ago, but now his entire plan was to get roasted like a marshmallow while he hoped that pushing the car would work. In case he didn't realize, he was pretty much the only thing keeping these 3 alive to begin with. Without him, they're as good as dead anyway, so instead of immediately jumping to make the heroic sacrifice for no damn reason, let's take a minute to actually think about the situation we're in here. This squad of soldiers were part of a flamethrower crew moving through to finish off any zombies that survived the gas. Flamethrowers saw their greatest use in the Pacific Theater during World War II, where they were used to clear out heavy fortified positions, but trust me, as sick as they are, getting the flamethrower was not the job you wanted. On average, these guys only lasted for a matter of minutes once they were directly engaged by the enemy. The reason for this is because their bulky equipment makes them an easy target, and the fuel tanks that they have to wear on their backs are highly flammable. I mean, one hit from a stray bullet and the backpack goes boom, and the explosion could be powerful enough to take out several people around you. I think you already see where I'm going here. Doyle has his rifle, and he's already proven that he's a nasty shot. With the cloud of smoke covering the area, the general chaos of the whole environment, and the fact that they won't expect any living people to be out there, giving him the element of surprise, Doyle should easily have been able to get the drop on these dudes and take the whole squad out with one well-placed shot to the flamethrower's fuel tank. I mean, he's Hawkeye for crying out loud. There was no reason to sacrifice himself here when he had such an obvious opportunity. Now the kids will have to survive without him, and they still have one more challenge left to face. Scarlett hauls ass through the city trying to outrun the gas, but they don't make it far before a military helicopter shows up and just starts opening fire. Dodging the rounds, she's forced to spin off the road and head for the subway, launching the car into the tunnels where they can get some cover. After taking it as far as they can, they have to ditch their ride and keep going on foot, but these tunnels could even be more dangerous than the streets. The place is filled with people's abandoned stuff, and the deeper that they go, it eventually becomes impossible to see without their night vision scope. Hugging the wall, she guides them through the darkness as they step over the piles of decomposing bodies, until Tammy eventually slips and goes tumbling down the escalator into the abyss. Calling them out, the woman starts desperately trying to find the kids, but she doesn't notice a mysterious figure stalking them from the shadows. Finally, she finds Tammy hiding in one of the halls, when all of a sudden, zombie Dawn comes sprinting in and starts beating her to death with her own rifle. There's nothing that the girl can do as he brutally caves in her skull, making 8 down with only 2 more to go. But once he's gone, she picks up the rifle and starts looking for her brother. Meanwhile, Andy here is lost somewhere in the tunnels, but before she can find him, their dad gets to him first. Obviously terrified, the kid stands there paralyzed by fear as their father runs over and pins him to the ground, instantly taking a bite out of his skin. Just then, Tammy comes in with the sticky and absolutely lights him up, killing the hell once and for all. But for her brother, it looks like it's already too late. The boy gets up and runs deeper into the tunnels, thinking that he must be about to turn, but to their surprise, the virus isn't able to take over. Looking into his eyes, Tammy realizes that he must have the same immunity as their mother, just like Scarlett was hoping for all along. Walking towards the light at the end of the tunnel, they finally emerge into the abandoned stadium where Flynn is waiting for them. He's worried when he sees that Doyle did not make it, but he knows that saving the kids is the right thing to do, and they climb on board as he flies them to a safer place. Or at least, that's what they think. So thanks to Andy's special blood, it looks like humanity might get their chance at a cure, but less than a month later, another horde of zombies comes pouring out of the subways near the Eiffel Tower. It looks like the infection just went global after all.
28 weeks later, let's go, man. I still remember when that first joint came out, 28 days later. Woo, man, that was the hardest movie I had ever seen. Fast zombies, crazy gore, loved the story, the bleak outlook on everything. I mean, that movie was the Plus, they filmed on like potato cameras to make it look ultra realistic. I don't know, the movie was fire. I got it on Blu-ray, which is extremely hard to find these days, and 28 weeks later, I mean, hey, more of the same, but still very awesome. And who knows, man, that sequel coming up pretty soon, and I can't wait to see what they cook up with for part 3. But if you liked today's video, leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you would have done anything differently, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm The Guy. We'll see you on the next video, and have a damn good day.